You're listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. Join us as we explore new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. And now here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
We are at a crossroads in the evolution of humanity. We are facing a vital choice. Do we evolve or do we devolve? We have the power to influence the direction in which we steer the future of humanity. But if we become disconnected from source, nature, our hearts, and the heart of who we are as human beings, we lose our rudder in a chaotic, disrupted world. Our connection to source offers a wellspring of natural guidance, a kind of cosmic GPS, if you will, that may prove to be humanity's salvation. For it shows that we don't have to be devout followers of spiritual and religious doctrines to reconnect with our right place in the universe. Ervin László, in his new book, Reconnecting to the Source, The New Science of Spiritual Experience, How It Can Change You and How It Can Transform the World, shares with us a unique, never-before-available instruction manual for people who want to know how they can consciously align with the forces and attractors that govern the universe and bring us living, conscious people who can mindfully steer the processes of evolution that unfold here on Earth. In this quantum conversation, Professor László talked about how simple and yet how vital it is that we reconnect with Source in order to influence the future of the world. He shares with us an urgent message about why reconnecting to Source is the most vital act we must all commit to ensure the future of the world. Hi, and welcome to Quantum Conversations. I'm Karen Curry Parker, and I'm honored to welcome Ervin László, two-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee, to our show today. Professor László is the prolific author, co-author, or editor of more than 100 books translated into over 20 languages. He's contributed to hundreds of papers and articles in scientific journals and magazines. Professor László is the longtime editor of the acclaimed international periodical World Futures, the Journal of General Evolution, the founder of 2 international think tanks. He's also the founder and director of the László Institute of New Paradigm Research, a global think tank dedicated to exploring and expanding the frontiers of science and consciousness. Today, we're going to be discussing Professor László's new book, Reconnecting to the Source, The New Science of Spiritual Experience, How It Can Change You and How It Can Transform the World. Welcome, Professor László. I'm so honored to have you here today.
It's wonderful to talk with you, Karen. Thanks for this conversation.
Oh, so I am actually going to take us back to some beginning understandings, because you use beautiful language and you use terms that I see shared a lot out into the world. And I think the information you have is so important. I think we have to start first by going back to looking at the basic terms that you're using. And I'm actually literally going to pick apart your title, because I want to hear from you. First of all, when you say reconnecting to Source, what is your definition of Source?
Well, frankly, basically, it's the universe. It's nature. It's everything what's around you, everything that is from our origin. So it's the simplest explanation, I think, is the universe. As we experience is for us. Mm-hmm. We are products of evolution. We come from the universe. And we are part of the universe, part of nature. And when we connect to the source, we connect to part of who we are, part of the womb from which we have emerged, and which is still embeds us and is still the context for our life.
Beautiful. Now, you have done a lot of work in your life talking about the notion of evolution. And I would love to know from you, when you talk about evolution, unpack that concept for me a little bit. Are you talking about Darwinian evolution? Is evolution more conscious than perhaps we learned in school? What do you think of when you talk about evolution in particular in the context of humanity?
Well, I can give you most general terms or most general definition of evolution, which is the one I really like, and then you can specify what kind of evolution you like. For me, the most general description of evolution is a process of continuous and partially irreversible change. There's something that's change, a process of change that at least some elements of that change you cannot pull back. It's not just a fluctuation from A to B and back to A. It's from A to B, and from B it must go on to something towards C and D. So that can be applied to physics, to the quantum particles. That can apply to your mind and consciousness. That can apply to society. That can apply to the biosphere. Change that is continuous and at least in part not reversible.
So when you talk about connecting to source, and you refer to source as the universe, and you talk about you've talked about for your whole life, it seems like, about the nature of evolution, is the imperative of source to evolve?
Source is the universe, and the universe evolves.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So the source evolves. You might say, yes, the source evolves. There is nothing in the world that would be constant. It either evolves or devolves. It either moves forward or moves backwards. But there is nothing absolutely constant and stationary.
Beautiful. So when you talk about your definition of source and you talk about reconnecting to source, how do we connect to source? If I was going to, let's say I had lost my connection, what would you recommend to me as some of the first vital steps that I would need to take to really make that connection stronger or to reconnect?
Well, you can reconnect intellectually through science, trying to understand the relationship between the quantum reality that is around us and our brain, and then try to find that relationship and reinforce it. That's the intellectual way. And that's also the way looking at it from outside. You can also reconnect another way, and that's the way that I'm talking about in my new book. That is also fairly new to me to talk about it in this way. And that is the inner way. By inner, I mean to rediscover in yourself that source. And I say that, yes, that source is in us, because the universe is, just for a moment to introduce that term, the universe is a hologram. And a hologram just simply means that in everything that makes a hologram is present in all its parts. That we know from our experience in an ordinary hologram. And if the universe is a hologram, that means that everything that makes the universe what it is present in all of its parts. And that's a good, I think, definition of the quantum reality. All the information is present everywhere. So when you reconnect to the universe through the inner way, that means you rediscover the universe in yourself. That's a very, very old concept. The sages and the prophets have been talking about going into yourself and finding your world in you. In a way, now in the quantum disciplines, we find that is true. So I talk about reconnecting by having the experience. And you can experience something beyond yourself, which is in you, but at the same time is also outside of you. And that is the real idea, the real experience, the experiment, the sensation of the source.
So why is this connection important?
Because hopefully it helps us to find our way back to who we are. Because we have lost that way. We have moved in an unnatural way. I talk about humanity as we, humankind. We have created an artificial world which no longer is in tune with the basic rhythms, the basic developments, the basic processes of the universe. We no longer are purely natural beings. We are getting to be more and more artificial kind of cyber beings. And that is unhealthy for us because it disrupts our connection with the real world around us. And we see that it opens the way to our diseases in us, and it destroys the coherence, the unity, the oneness of the world around us. So reconnecting means rediscovering in ourselves the rhythms, the wholeness, the oneness, which is in the universe, which is in us, but which we have forgotten. Getting back to who we really are.
Mm. So I'm going to guess, because I don't know your whole life story, but I'm going to guess that when you first started out in your life, that becoming someone who's seeking to bridge between consciousness and source and creating in the world maybe wasn't the first place where you started. How did you get started on this path of reconnecting and reawakening that connection with the people in your life and with yourself and in the world?
Well, I was reconnecting, or reconnected, I would say, involuntarily, even without my head doing it consciously. The reason is because I had an unusual kind of a background. I was a child prodigy on the piano, as a classical pianist. Mm-hmm. Was playing concerts since I was 9 years old in public and then traveling all over the world. So I was connected. And the sensation of playing music is a sensation of being connected. Mm-hmm. And you feel yourself one with the rest, with the world around you. Certainly with the people for whom you are playing, with whom you are playing the music. And it's a fantastic experience. And that sense of oneness and coherence is what I was seeking also when I went another further way, beyond being a professional musician. I became a professor of philosophy and a writer, but as a researcher, and I was searching for the same harmony, the same sense of oneness and wholeness that I found in music. I was searching for that also in my writings, in the intellectual world that I was researching through science.
That's a wonderful story. So one of the things that you've done in this book that I love so much is you've taken stories from major pioneers in consciousness and shared their stories of reconnection and awakening. So it's not just your beautiful story, it's all these amazing contributors, people who are very well known, I think, in the consciousness or the personal growth and development field. Your introduction is even written by Deepak Chopra. Of all of these stories that you've gathered, do you have a favorite one?
They're all my favorites. I mean, I asked these people because I have known them, I've respected them, I've seen their writings. I believe that they are truly and genuinely spiritual people. And I asked them to describe the experience that kind of made them spiritual. Mm-hmm. So when you discovered perhaps that you are spiritual. By spiritual, I mean sensitive, beyond just the world of the eye and the ear and the other senses. And they responded, I must say, without exception. They said, yes, we have had experiences like that. And each one of them described that experience that made a big difference, that made a change in their life. So they are actually, I learned a lot from them, and they are all my favorites.
Beautiful. So you do a lot of work looking at the world and exploring the idea of not only how can we transform the world, but maybe how can we, through our own movement in the world, reconnect humanity on its natural path, maybe towards an evolution of the heart. One of the things I ask all of my guests is when you look at what's going on in the world right now, you open up your newspaper or your online news source, it looks pretty discouraging. What do you think is up in the world right now? Why have we gotten to this state? And is it a good thing or a bad thing? Or talk to me about it and talk to me about how people can maybe find hope when they look at the newspaper right now or the news.
Well, we are at the cusp of a development. It no longer goes like it has been going. It's also known as a bifurcation, which means that there is no way forward like this, like we've been doing it. We must change, either change or collapse, change or really have a catastrophe. So I think whether or not this is a sign for a good thing or a bad thing remains to be seen, because there is no real progress without a level of chaos, a level of questioning. And when we say, yes, we must change. You don't change if everything works just the way you always thought it would and never and will always work this way, then you yourself don't change. And in our case, that is no longer what we can believe in. We can see the processes in the world, whether you talk about climate change or levels of pollution or availability of fresh water or the availability even of unpolluted sources of food and agricultural products, or the relationship between people. Talk about migrant crisis. We could talk on and on about these problems. But what, in one word, we can say, it doesn't go like this. Mm-hmm. So that means this necessity for change is now with us. I used to talk for about now 20, 25 years at least about the coming of a bifurcation, the coming of a crisis. Now I'm saying it's no longer just coming, we are in it. And now the outcome of this is not settled. We are certainly moving toward a deeper and deeper levels of crisis. But at the same time, there are so many elements of change and hope in the world. A new recognition, a new mentality. I talk about a new paradigm, a new way of looking at ourselves and at the world. It's emerging at the same time. So now, what will win out in this situation? Will the crisis become so bad as we can't pull back anymore? Or will these alternative positive trends that are now beginning to show up in the world, will those become more and more strong and finally dominant and change our behavior? We need to change our behavior. We need to change our mentality, the way we look at ourselves and at the world. And if we can change, we can change. But if we do change, then it's high time to start doing it. So what the world before us, the state of the world, is not a state of either negative or positive. It's a change. It's a state of perhaps. It's a change, a state of opportunity, something that we can be, which hasn't been decided yet. But what we can be and what we will be is still up to us, still up to this tremendous change that we see in front of us, where teenage girls are all making, changing the mentality of young people, where young people as a whole are waking up, where business people are beginning to ask themselves, can we pursue our business strategies like we have been, because it doesn't lead into any positive results. When politicians are also asking themselves, is that the way we do it? And so there are waves of possibilities. It depends on us. So it's time, I say, to wake up. It's time to recognize where we are. We are in a crisis, but we are not logged into the crisis. We are at a point of bifurcation where there's a simple law of bifurcation. You can't go back. You can't stay the way you are, but you can find a way forward. And if you find a good way forward, then we are changing in time, and we can still create a world that works for all.
Beautiful. So reconnecting to source is perhaps on a personal level the first right step in a direction that creates a sustainable world for everyone?
Because when you truly have this experience, which I describe in this new book as a spiritual experience, then you have a sensation of being whole. You can describe it in many different ways, but words are inadequate. A sensation of oneness, sensation of wholeness, sensation of belonging. It's a sensation that you are no longer a stranger in an impassive and unfeeling world around you. And that is the trust, that is the core, the gist of the spiritual experience. And when I invited these people, nearly 2,000 eminent people known for the sincerity, known for the deep feelings, to describe their experience, they came up with strikingly similar conclusions. The overriding feeling when you're having this deep experience, when you're going into yourself, is what ultimately nowadays we can express as love, actually as unrequited, limitless, and not necessarily not commercialized kind of a love for its own sake. And this, I think, is this really sense. The universe is ready, is a reality, basically a field, a context for relationships of oneness, relationship of pulling together. We would not be here if it would not be the case. An atom consists of its nucleus and of its electrons. And using a somewhat imaginative metaphor, you can say, the nucleus, which itself consists of quarks, and then it attracts electrons, and all together acts so that it can be integrated into molecules. This process is a process of love, of increasing oneness. So this is what we can try to aim for, because it's in us. I say that there is very good evidence that there is no such thing as purely chance, as purely randomness in the world. Everything is oriented in some way. To use another term, everything is biased, but in a positive way, not biased for the bad, biased for the good, biased so that it's more likely to pull together than to pull apart. Separateness, Einstein said, is an illusion. And I agree. We know that more and more, not only in the quantum domain, the ultra small, but in the everyday world. Separateness is not real. We are basically all one, but we have forgotten it, and we are acting as separate beings, as separate individuals, as separate societies, separate companies, and we are seeking our own way independently of what the others are around us. And this kind of selfishness, self-centeredness, which is so widely spread today in politics, in many aspects of society, in classical business management. Well, that is really a bad way, which is no longer the way that we can pursue, because it creates crisis. It breaks things apart. And that's what we see today, a breaking apart. And the spiritual experience is one that can help you pull together. That is why I say, allowing this experience to surface in you, I think it's one way to connecting with the source. And if you connect with the source in this way, through this experience, then you can become one with the world around you. And so that is basically what I would put as a message.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Professor László's book, Reconnecting to Source, The New Science of Spiritual Experience, How It Can Change You and How It Can Transform the World, will be available for sale on Amazon and other book outlets starting in March, end of March 2020. Go grab your copy and get to work reconnecting to Source, because the world needs you to be reconnected so that you can create a world that's based on unity and heart. Professor László, thank you so much for joining us today, and good travels on your journey. And thank you so much for contributing this beautiful piece of work to the world.
Thank you very much for focusing on these ideas, which are so essential for our individual, also for a collective human well-being of this planet.
Thank you.
We have to wake up, and this is the way to do it, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. I am not a crier, but the end of this interview left me in tears. Professor László so urgently shared at the end of this interview why we must connect to the authentic narrative of who we are, both on a personal and a collective level. I am a grandmother and a mother, And when I became a grandmother, my worldview expanded in ways I really didn't expect. My heart grew beyond the love that I have for my family to include not only my loved ones and my beautiful grandson, but all of the children of the world. The future of the world rests solidly in our hands and our hearts. Our scientific models have revealed the frightening potential of the de-evolution of our world. If we do not put down our technology and connect with our hearts, we will potentially be creating a world rife with struggle and pain. If we're brilliant enough to predict this doomed future, it seems to me that we can also use our scientific understanding to harness the infinite and biased goodness of Source to create a different future. An evolved future that is grounded in compassion. A world where every child has enough food, safety, shelter, love, education, and resources to fully actualize the potential of their life. When I share this vision with people I teach and connect with all around the world, without fail, a vision of a future world of sustainable, equitable resources and peace inspires smiles and a light-filled shift in countenance. When we're connected with our hearts, we are inspired by the potential of this future, a beautiful new world that we have the potential to create. The power to choose the future lies within us, but first we must reconnect with Source. If you'd like to discover your innate creative power and your path to connecting with Source, please visit freehumandesignchart.com, where you can get your free human design chart and your personalized report that will teach you that you have the power to influence the future of the world. I'm Karen Curry Parker. Thank you for serving the evolution of the planet and the children of the future. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. For more information, visit joyfulmission.com.